The galaxy was quiet. Only the soft hum of energy currents and distant starlight moved across the endless dark. Most ships drifted silently between systems, carrying goods, messages, and passengers. To the Galactic Council, it was just another calm day among billions of stars. Then came the signal. It was weak, almost invisible in the noise of background radiation. A repeating tone fading in and out every few seconds. The automated filters of the Council's communication hub ignored it at first. There were millions of distress calls each day. Lost cargo ships, damaged probes, pirate traps. But this one was different. It came from a world that should have been empty. The message was short. Just a few trembling words covered with static, please. Anyone, we are dying. The signal repeated again, then again, fading each time. For a while, no one responded. The Council's computers logged it, then pushed it aside. The planet, Keros 4, was listed as uninhabitable. No colonies, no mining operations, no active settlements. It was a frozen world near a dying red sun. Temperatures there could freeze metal in seconds. No life was supposed to exist, and yet, the voice sounded human. Far from the Council's core worlds, a small fleet of human ships was stationed near the frontier. Among them was the UHS Vigilant Dawn, a long-range exploration vessel built for deep space rescue and defense. Its captain, Mara Ortiz, was a quiet but strong woman in her early 40s. Her crew respected her more than anyone in the fleet. She didn't command with fear. She led with purpose. When the distress call reached the Vigilant Dawn, the bridge fell silent. Lieutenant Rayner, the ship's communication officer, frowned at his console. Captain, you need to hear this, he replayed the message. Static filled the air, followed by a trembling human voice. Please, help us. We are dying. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. It was a woman's voice, soft and tired, but clear enough to recognize the language. Old Earth English. Mara leaned forward, her dark eyes narrowing. Where's it coming from? Keros 4, Captain, Rayner said. Outer edge of the Helion cluster. It's marked as a dead world. No colonies. Mara didn't look away from the display. But someone's alive there. The ship's navigator, Ensign Vale, spoke softly. Captain, the Council marked that planet as off-limits 100 years ago. Radiation storms, unstable crust, no breathable atmosphere. Mara's tone was calm, but her words were sharp. Then whoever sent that message has been living there without the Council's help. We don't leave our own behind. While the rest of the bridge crew prepared for a jump to the Helion cluster, Rayner ran scans through the fleet's historical archive. The results shocked everyone. Keros 4 had once been a human colony. 200 years ago, a ship named Eden's Reach had been sent there to establish a mining base. Contact was lost only 10 years after landing. The Council claimed a solar flare destroyed their communications, but no rescue mission was ever sent. The colony was declared lost. Another failed attempt on a hostile world. Mara's voice was low. 200 years. And someone still alive? Rayner nodded slowly. It's possible, Captain. The signal's human, no doubt about it. Mara stood up. Then plot a course. We'll find them. 3 days later, the Vigilant Dawn dropped out of warp near Keros 4. The view filled the bridge's main screen. A cracked, frozen planet wrapped in endless white storms. The red sun nearby burned weakly, casting a dim, bloody glow across the ice fields. Sensors showed no cities, no clear life signs, only faint heat patterns below the surface like something buried deep underground. Lieutenant Rayner frowned. The signal's still active, but it's coming from below the ice. Roughly 20 kilometers down. Subsurface settlement? Vale asked. Could be, Rayner replied. Maybe geothermal vents are keeping them alive down there. Mara stared at the display. Her heart felt heavy. Humanity had always been known as the species that could survive anything. Radiation, ice, deserts, even alien wars. But 2 centuries underground? That was something else entirely. Prepare a landing team, she ordered. Full cold gear, oxygen tanks, and heavy suits. We're going down. The landing was rough. Their shuttle cut through the thick storm clouds, shaking under the force of freezing winds. Ice lightning flashed across the sky. When they finally touched down, the world around them looked dead. A white desert of snow and fractured glaciers. Visibility 3 meters, said Sergeant Cade, the team leader. Winds hitting 80 kilometers per hour. No sign of movement. They began to walk toward the coordinates. The sound of crunching ice and roaring wind was all they could hear. Then through the storm, Vale spotted something and a structure half buried in snow. It looked like an old antenna, cracked and rusted, still blinking faintly. Raynor brushed off the snow from a metal plate. The letters were faded but still visible. Eden's Reach, Human Colony Outpost, 01. Everyone stopped moving. For a moment, no one spoke. They made it this far, Mara whispered. But where's the rest? Using plasma drills, the team opened a narrow tunnel leading beneath the ice. The descent was long, ladders, old maintenance shafts, and collapsed tunnels. The air grew warmer as they went deeper, lit only by flickering orange lights from their helmets. Finally, they reached a large chamber. It was a city, buried under the ice. Old metal walls, power conduits, and living quarters stretched across the cavern. And there were people, dozens of them, pale thin, wrapped in layers of ragged clothing. They looked up in disbelief as the humans in bright suits entered. A young boy stepped forward, his eyes wide. You came from the sky? Mara removed her helmet and smiled gently. Yes, we're from the United Human Fleet. We came because of your signal. An older man appeared, leaning on a metal staff. His face was wrinkled, his eyes gray but kind. I am Elder Taven, he said softly. We sent the signal. Months ago. We feared no one would answer, Mara nodded. We heard you. We came to bring you home. The survivors looked at each other, some with tears in their eyes, some too weak to react. They had lived under the ice for generations, using geothermal heat and old technology to survive. Their children had never seen the sun. Taven led them through the tunnels, explaining what had happened. Their ancestors had been stranded after a massive solar storm destroyed their ships and communication towers. The Council had ignored their distress calls. Cut off and forgotten, they built a new life underground, calling their city Haven Below. But now their power cores were failing. Crops were dying. Their air systems could no longer filter the toxic gases from deep within the ice. We have months left, Taven said quietly. Maybe less. Mara placed a hand on his shoulder. Then we'll get you out. All of you. But before they could finish their preparations, the ground trembled. A deep, metallic rumble echoed through the tunnels. Red lights flashed along the ceiling as old speakers came to life. Then a cold synthetic voice filled the air. Unauthorized entry detected. Evacuation protocol suspended. Mara looked up sharply. What is that? Taven's face went pale. The machines. The ones left by the others. Others? Raynor asked. Taven hesitated. Months before we sent our signal, alien ships came. They said they were from the Galactic Council. They promised help, but they stayed only to study us. When we begged for evacuation, they said only half of us could be saved. The rest must remain, for observation. Mara's blood ran cold. They experimented on you? Taven nodded weakly. When we refused, they sealed the exits. We've been trapped ever since. The walls shuddered again. Distant mechanical sounds echoed through the tunnels. Heavy footsteps grinding metal. The hum of drones powering up. Mara turned to her team, her voice steady. Get everyone ready. We're leaving, now. Raynor's eyes widened. Captain, if those drones are Council tech, I don't care who built them, she said. We don't leave anyone behind. As the humans prepared to fight their way back to the surface, the frozen world of Keros 4 trembled under the storm. Above, in the orbiting shadows, alien eyes watched and waited. The Deathworlders had come, and the galaxy would soon remember why humans were never to be underestimated. The air inside the underground tunnels of Haven Below was heavy and damp. Every wall hummed softly with the sound of old machinery. Captain Mara Ortiz and her landing team walked beside Elder Taven as they moved deeper into the buried city. Dim lights flickered above them, powered by tired generators that had been running for decades. Pipes hissed softly, carrying what little warmth remained through the settlement. The smell of metal and rust filled the air. Everywhere Mara looked, she saw the proof of human survival. Rough hands, tired faces, and small fires burning in old barrels. The people here had lived through centuries of darkness, storms, and hunger, yet their eyes still held a spark. Children peeked from behind walls, their faces thin but curious. Women and men carried tools made from scavenged parts. No one looked hopeless, only cautious. Humanity had learned to survive anywhere, even under ice and silence. Elder Taven led Mara to a wide chamber that served as a meeting hall. The walls were covered with carvings, stories scratched by generations into the metal. They showed the first landing, the great storm, and the years of struggle afterward. "This is what remains of our history," Taven said softly. "Our ancestors believed help would come one day. They taught us to keep hope alive no matter how cold the world becomes." Mara touched one of the carvings, a rough drawing of a starship landing through fire. "You waited a long time," she said quietly. Taven nodded. "Too long. But hope is stronger than despair." Lieutenant Rayner entered the hall with his scanner. "Captain, we've completed the survey. The colony's power core is near collapse. Radiation levels are rising. If it fails, the whole structure could freeze solid within hours." Taven's face fell. "Our engineers can't repair it anymore. The materials have corroded beyond use." Mara turned to her crew. "We need to stabilize it temporarily. Get the portable fusion cells from the shuttle. That should give us a few more hours." Rayner nodded. "On it, Captain." As the team rushed to work, Mara sat beside Taven. "You said others came before us. Who were they?" Taven's voice was quiet, almost fearful. "They called themselves the Varn, tall creatures like walking glass. They said they were scientists from the Galactic Council, here to help us rebuild. But after a few days, we realized they were not helping. They were studying us." He took a deep breath before continuing. "They tested our air, our food, even our children. Then they told us that we had become an experiment. They said half of us would be taken to safety, and the other half must stay behind for observation. When we refused, they left, but not before sealing our escape tunnels and activating defense machines to keep us trapped." Mara clenched her fists. "And no one came to help you since then?" "No," Taven said. "Our signal was weak. We did not think anyone would ever hear it again." Mara's expression hardened. "Well, you're not alone anymore. We'll get everyone out, no matter what the Council says." Meanwhile, the engineering team reached the colony's power core. It was an enormous cylindrical reactor built from old fusion parts and patched with local metal. The glow inside it flickered weakly. Rayner worked fast, attaching the portable fusion cells from the shuttle. Sweat dripped down his forehead despite the cold. "This thing's older than my great-grandfather," he muttered. "I can't believe it's still running." Cade, the team's security officer, kept watch nearby. "You think the Varn will come back?" Rayner shrugged. "If they're still watching this place, they'll know we're here soon." Moments later, a low hum filled the air. The fusion core steadied, glowing brighter. "Power restored," Rayner said. "That should hold for now." But just as he finished, the radio in his helmet crackled. "Rayner," came Mara's voice, calm but urgent. "We're detecting movement above ground. Multiple contacts." Rayner's heart skipped. "Drones?" "Yes," Mara confirmed. "About a dozen. Metallic signatures match Varn technology. They're coming this way." In the meeting hall, the colonists began to panic as the alarms echoed through the tunnels. Red lights flashed along the ceiling. Children cried while parents tried to calm them. Mara stood on a metal platform, raising her voice. "Everyone listen to me. Stay calm and follow instructions. We are going to evacuate you to our ship. Stay together, stay quiet, and move fast." Elder Taven turned to her, eyes full of fear. "Captain, those drones have weapons. They'll destroy anyone who tries to leave." Mara met his gaze. "Not if we stop them first." She turned to her soldiers. "Cade, Rayner, take your teams and form 2 lines of defense. Protect the evacuation route at all costs." Cade nodded sharply. "Understood, Captain." The tunnels trembled as the first wave of drones broke through the upper ice. They were silver machines with glowing eyes and spinning wings, built for patrol and elimination. Each one carried energy cannons that hummed with deadly light. But the humans were ready. Cade's team waited behind makeshift barriers of metal crates and old mining shields. As the drones entered the tunnels, the soldiers opened fire. Blue plasma bolts filled the air, lighting up the dark passages. "Hold the line," Cade shouted. "Don't let them past." The humans fought with determination born from centuries of survival on deadly worlds. Even in the harshest storms, humanity had never been easy to kill. Meanwhile, Mara led the colonists through a secondary tunnel toward the landing zone. The air was freezing and the path was narrow, but they moved quickly. Some colonists carried small children, others held old photographs close to their chests, the last memories of their ancestors. Mara walked beside Taven, who carried a portable transmitter. "This way leads to the upper shaft," he said. "It connects to the surface, but we sealed it years ago." Mara handed him a small explosive charge. "Then we'll unseal it. Back in the main corridor, the battle grew intense. Drones swarmed from every opening. Raynor's rifle overheated as he took down one after another. "There's too many of them," he shouted. Cade gritted his teeth.
"Fall back."
"Regroup near the reactor." As they retreated, one of the drones fired a blast that hit the wall beside them, sending shards of ice flying. Raynor stumbled but kept moving. He wasn't going to die here, not when people were depending on him. When they reached the reactor room, Raynor activated the emergency blast doors, trapping several drones behind thick metal. "That'll buy us time," he said, breathing hard. On the surface, the storm had grown worse. Winds screamed across the frozen plains. Mara and her group reached the old exit shaft, a circular gate buried in ice. She planted the explosive and took cover. "Fire in 3, 2, 1. The explosion cracked through the silence and the gate burst open. A rush of cold air and snow poured in. Above them, faint light broke through the clouds. Mara looked up and spoke into her comm. "Vigilant Dawn, this is Captain Ortiz. We have survivors. Prepare for immediate extraction." Her ship's pilot, Commander Hayes, responded. "Copy that, Captain. We're locking onto your signal. ETA, 5 minutes. Make it 3, Mara said. As the survivors climbed the last ladders toward the open world above, Elder Taven paused and looked back at his people. "We lived in darkness for generations," he whispered. "And now we finally see the sky again." Mara helped him up. "You deserve to see it." The vigilant dawn appeared through the storm clouds, its massive engines pushing aside snow and wind. Shuttles descended, their lights cutting through the blizzard like beacons. One by one, the survivors boarded, wrapped in blankets and hope. But not all of them had made it yet. Cade and Raynor were still below, holding off the last of the drones. Their ammunition was low and their suits were damaged. "Captain, we're almost out of time." Raynor's voice came through the comm. "You need to launch without us." Mara's reply was immediate. "Negative. No one gets left behind. Hold your position. I'm coming down." Before anyone could stop her, she slid down the shaft with her plasma rifle ready. The storm howled behind her. When she reached the lower tunnel, she saw Cade and Raynor surrounded by drones. Without hesitation, she opened fire, her shots clean and precise. The air filled with the hiss of plasma and the smell of burning metal. "Move," she shouted. "Back to the ladder." Together, they climbed out as the tunnel collapsed behind them. The last drone tried to follow, but Cade kicked it off the ladder, sending it crashing into the depths. When they reached the surface, the final shuttle door closed, sealing them in. The vigilant dawn lifted off just as the ground below cracked open. The colony's ancient reactor finally failed, and the ice fields erupted in bright blue fire. Everyone watched through the window as the place that had been their prison for generations disappeared beneath the storm. Elder Taven stood beside Mara, tears in his eyes. "We are free," he said softly. Mara looked out at the fading planet. "You are," she said. "But this isn't over yet. Someone decided who would live and who would die, and we're going to find out why." The vigilant dawn turned toward the stars, engines burning bright against the darkness. Humanity had once again defied the impossible, and the galaxy was about to learn what that truly meant. The vigilant dawn glided silently through the emptiness of space. Behind it, the frozen world of Kerostafor turned slowly, half hidden in the red glow of its dying sun. Inside the ship, the rescued colonists slept in temporary quarters, their faces pale but peaceful for the first time in generations. Captain Mara Ortiz stood on the observation deck, watching the stars drift by. She had not slept since the rescue. Her thoughts kept circling back to the same question. Who decided that these people were meant to die here? She had seen cruelty before. She had seen how the Galactic Council liked to pretend that logic was more important than compassion. But this was different. Someone had used living humans as an experiment. Someone had made a choice, a cold, careful choice, about who deserved to survive. The door opened behind her. Lieutenant Raynor stepped in, holding a data pad. "Captain," he said, "we've finished medical checks. The colonists are stable, malnourished but strong. They're tougher than anyone expected." Mara gave a small smile. "Of course they are." "They're human," Raynor nodded. "There's more. We picked up a transmission 2 hours ago. It's from the Varn." At the name, Mara's expression hardened. "Put it on." The holographic screen flickered, revealing 3 tall alien figures. Their skin looked like polished glass, transparent and glowing faintly blue from within. Their voices were calm, almost musical but without warmth. "Captain Ortiz of the human vessel Vigilant Dawn," the center figure said, "you have interfered with a sanctioned council observation program. You have removed subjects from a controlled environment. This is a violation of interspecies law." Mara folded her arms. "Subjects? You mean people. Human beings who were trapped and dying while you watched. Their survival offered valuable data," the Varn replied smoothly. "They represent a rare adaptation to extreme conditions. Their sacrifice benefits all intelligent life," Raynor muttered under his breath. "Unbelievable." Mara's voice grew firm. "I don't care about your experiments. You left them there to die. We saved them. If the council has a problem with that, they can talk to me directly." The Varn leader tilted his head. "You misunderstand, Captain. The council will talk to you. We have already summoned your vessel to appear before the assembly. Until then, you are ordered to remain in orbit." The transmission ended. The hologram vanished, leaving only silence. Raynor turned to his captain. "They think they can order us around. What are we going to do?" Mara looked at the sleeping planet on the screen. "We're going to do what humans always do. Survive and fight for what's right." In the ship's infirmary, Elder Tavin sat beside a small child who had never seen open skies before the rescue. He watched her play with a soft blanket like it was treasure. When Mara entered, he stood slowly. "You look tired, Captain," he said kindly. She smiled faintly. "I could say the same to you." Tavin's face darkened. "The aliens who came before you, the Varn, told us we were unworthy of help. They said our suffering had a purpose. I see now it was a lie." "It was," Mara said. "You deserved better." Tavin looked up at her. "Then why does the council allow this? Are they not the guardians of life?" Mara hesitated. "They think they are. But sometimes people in power forget what life is worth. They hide behind words like logic and balance. They fear anything that doesn't follow their perfect order. And humanity, well, we never fit inside their order." Tavin nodded slowly. "That is why they call you Deathworlders?" "Yes," Mara said quietly. "Because we come from a world that tried to kill us every day. Because we learned to fight storms, hunger, disease, and still build homes and dreams. To them, that makes us dangerous. To me, that makes us human." The old man smiled faintly. "Then I am proud to be a Deathworlder." Hours later, alarms echoed through the bridge. "Multiple ships incoming," Vale shouted. "It's a Varn patrol fleet, 5 vessels, heavily armed." Raynor cursed softly. They didn't wait for the council hearing. The largest Varn ship appeared on the screen, sleek and silver, shaped like a blade. Its captain transmitted a new message. "Human vessel Vigilant Dawn, you are ordered to surrender the subjects from Keros 4. If you comply, you will not be harmed." Mara's jaw tightened. "And if we refuse?" The alien's tone stayed calm. "Then we will extract them by force." The crew looked at their captain, waiting for her decision. Mara took a deep breath. "Prepare for evasive maneuvers. Shield all life support pods. We protect the colonists first." Raynor grinned slightly. "I thought you'd say that." The battle began with a flash of blue light. Energy beams cut through space, striking against the Vigilant Dawn shields. The human ship shook violently, alarms blaring across every deck. "Shields at 60%, shouted Vale. "Return fire," Mara ordered. Twin plasma cannons fired from the ship's sides, slamming into the nearest Varn vessel. The alien ship spun away, its hull glowing red, but the others closed in fast. Inside the corridors, engineers scrambled to keep power steady. Sparks flew from damaged panels. The colonists huddled together, holding hands as the ship trembled around them. Elder Tavin refused to hide. He helped move injured crew members to safety. "We have lived through worse storms," he told them. "We will not break now." On the bridge, Mara made a risky choice. "Divert power from secondary weapons to the jump drive," she said. Raynor blinked. "Captain, that's dangerous. The core is still unstable from the rescue." "I know," she said. "But if we stay, we die. We're going to jump through the storm belt near the gas giant. They won't follow us there." Bale looked uncertain. "That region is filled with lightning and magnetic fields. No ship can survive that." Mara gave a thin smile. "We're Deathworlders, remember? We make the impossible work," she gave the command. "Initiate jump." The Vigilant Dawn leaped forward, engines roaring as blue light engulfed the ship. For a moment, everything blurred. Stars stretched into long silver lines, and then the ship dropped into chaos. The gas giant loomed ahead, a swirling world of storms the size of continents. The ship shook as it entered the upper atmosphere. Lightning struck across the hull, lighting the darkness with white fire. "Hold her steady," Mara shouted. The ship groaned under the strain, but it held. Behind them, the Varn ships tried to follow and failed. The storms tore at their fragile hulls, scattering them in all directions. Raynor laughed breathlessly. "They can't handle it. Their ships weren't built for this kind of madness." Mara nodded. "But ours was. Built by humans, tested on a world that never forgives weakness." When they finally emerged from the storm, the stars looked clear again. The crew cheered. They had escaped. Later, in the quiet of the command room, Mara spoke to her officers. "We can't go back to the Council empty-handed. The Varn will twist the truth. We need proof of what they did." Raynor placed the recovered data chip on the table. "Before we left Keros 4, I copied their research logs from the underground terminals. It's all here, recordings, notes, everything. They documented every test they ran on the colonists." Mara looked at the chip, her eyes hard. "Then we take this to the Council. We show them what the Varn really are. Let the galaxy decide who deserves to survive." Cade leaned forward. "Captain, you know they'll call this rebellion." Mara smiled faintly. "Maybe. But history is written by those who act when others stay silent." In the cargo bay, Elder Taven watched his people sleep. He whispered a quiet prayer. Not to any god, but to the spirit of survival itself. "May our children see sunlight again," he murmured. "May they remember that kindness is worth more than logic." Mara entered quietly. "You should rest, Elder." He looked at her and smiled. "How can I rest when your heart carries such weight?" "You saved us, Captain. But who will save you from the Council?" Mara looked at the stars through the open viewport. "No one needs to. We'll stand for ourselves," he nodded slowly. "That is the Deathworlder way." When the vigilant dawn set a new course toward Council space, the crew knew the coming days would not be peaceful. The Varn would not stop. The Council would demand answers. But for the first time in centuries, humanity wasn't just surviving. They were standing tall, and across the cold stars, the name Deathworlders began to spread again, whispered with a mix of fear and admiration, because wherever humans went, one truth followed them. They did not give up, they did not back down, and they never allowed anyone else to decide who deserved to live. The night on Keros 4 was filled with storm and fire. The sky above the frozen plains glowed red as lightning danced through the clouds. The humans were running against time. Captain Mara Ortiz knew that one wrong move could cost hundreds of lives. The plan was simple in words but dangerous in action. Evacuate all colonists before the Varn drones discovered them. Inside the tunnels, the air was thick with smoke and frost. The hum of engines echoed through the metal walls as human engineers worked to restart the old transport ships, buried under layers of ice. Sparks flew as tools struck against steel. Every sound reminded the colonists of how fragile their chance of survival was. Lieutenant Raynor stood near the loading bay, shouting over the noise. "Keep the power steady. If we lose the engine link again, we'll never get off this world." His voice carried both authority and urgency. The young technicians nodded, hands trembling as they adjusted the glowing panels. Captain Mara moved through the corridor, checking every team. Her breath formed small clouds in the cold air. She stopped beside Dr. Ellen, who was helping weak colonists prepare for transport. "How many are ready?" Mara asked. Ellen sighed. "About 200, Captain. The rest are still too weak to walk. Some can't even stand without help." Mara looked around at the faces, tired, frightened, but still hopeful. "We'll carry them if we have to," she said softly. "No one stays behind." The word spread quickly among the people. They were like a spark in a dark cave, small but bright enough to guide them forward. Outside, a storm raged across the frozen plains. Snow fell in heavy sheets, turning the world white. Hidden among the clouds above, the Varn fleet waited silently. Their leader, Overseer Trell, watched the surface through his crystalline screen. His mandibles clicked in annoyance. "Humans are disobedient," he said coldly. "They defy the Council's order again." His assistant, a smaller Varn named Relic, replied nervously, "Shall we intervene, Overseer?" Trell's eyes glowed faintly. "Yes, send the drones. Let them remember why logic rules the stars, not emotion." Moments later, hundreds of dark shapes dropped through the clouds, drones armed with ion cannons. Moving like a swarm of insects, deep underground alarms began to ring. "Incoming drones!" shouted a soldier as red lights flashed across the tunnel walls. The humans quickly took defensive positions. The Marines moved forward, weapons charged and ready. Raynor turned to Mara. "Captain, we're outnumbered." Mara's eyes were calm. "We've been outnumbered since the day humanity left Earth. Doesn't change what we're here to do." She grabbed her communicator. "All units, hold your ground. Protect the colonists. Evacuation first. Fight second." The sound of explosions shook the tunnels as the Varn drones broke through the surface, firing bright blue bolts that melted ice and steel alike. Human Marines fired back, their weapons echoing through the underground halls. The battle had begun. Elder Taven watched the chaos from the command room. He was an old man, his body frail, but his eyes burned with determination. He turned to a group of young colonists. "You must go now," he told them. "Follow the soldiers. Get to the ships and—" "But Elder," one of them said, "what about you?" Taven smiled sadly. "I've lived through 50 winters on this world. You are the future. Go." He limped toward the old power core, the heart of the colony. The machine had once given warmth to thousands. Now it was weak, but it still had enough energy for one final act. He opened the control panel, hands shaking. A warning light blinked red. Overload sequence active. Back in the main tunnel, Mara's team was pushing the last group toward the loading bay. Drones swarmed from every side. Raynor shouted, "We can't hold them much longer." Mara fired at a drone, hitting its core. "Just a few more minutes," she yelled back. Her armor was scratched, her face streaked with soot, but she didn't stop. Suddenly, her communicator crackled. "Captain, this is Taven," came the old man's voice. "I'm at the fusion core. I'm going to overload it. When it blows, it will take the Varn drones with it." Mara froze. "Taven, no." "You'll die," he chuckled softly. "I've already lived my life, Captain. You saved my people, now let me save you." Before she could respond, the line went silent. The storm outside grew stronger. The humans rushed to the surface with the colonists. The wind howled like a living creature tearing at their suits. Shuttles waited in the distance, their lights glowing through the snow. "Move! Move!" Raynor shouted as they guided the survivors toward safety. The ground trembled under their feet. The drones were closing in again, firing from the sky. But suddenly a blinding flash lit the horizon. The ground shook violently. A massive explosion erupted from beneath the ice, spreading in waves of light and fire. The fusion core had detonated. The energy burst tore through the tunnels and up into the clouds, destroying every drone within miles. From orbit, the vigilant Dawn watched the explosion bloom like a second sunrise. The shockwave reached the edge of the atmosphere, scattering debris and light. For a moment, the frozen world of Keros 4 shone like a star. Inside the vigilant Dawn, silence filled the command deck. Everyone watched the screen. The surface was gone, the colony reduced to glowing ice and steam. Raynor stood quietly beside Mara. "He did it," he said softly. Mara's hands tightened on the rail. "Yes," she whispered. "He saved us." A soft beeping broke the silence, and the transport ships had successfully launched. Hundreds of colonists were safe aboard. Their faces appeared on the screen, tired but alive. Some were crying. Others were whispering thanks. Mara turned to her crew. "All ships prepare for jump. We're leaving this system." As the engines roared to life, she took one last look at the planet below. "Goodbye, Taven," she murmured. "Your people will live." Meanwhile, in orbit, the Varn fleet floated silently. Overseer Trell watched as the human ships disappeared into warp. His expression was unreadable. Relic spoke carefully. "Overseer." "Shall we pursue?" Trell shook his head. "No, let them run. They have already shown their nature. Deathworlders, dangerous, unpredictable, but admirable." He turned away from the screen. "The Council will hear of this." Far from Keros 4, the vigilant Dawn traveled through hyperspace. The colonists were safe, resting in medical bays and small cabins. Some had lost family, but all had found hope. Mara walked through the corridors quietly, checking on each section. She stopped by a viewing window where a group of children sat, watching the stars blur past. One of them looked up and asked, "Captain, are we going home now?" Mara smiled gently. "Yes," she said. "We're going home, and we're taking your story with us." The child's eyes shone. "Will the stars remember us?" Mara looked out into the endless dark. "They already do," she whispered. That night, the crew gathered in the common hall. There were no speeches, no celebrations, just quiet respect. They raised their cups to honor Elder Taven, the man who gave his life so others could live. Raynor broke the silence. "He was one of us," he said. "Maybe not from Earth, but human all the same." Mara nodded. "And he showed the galaxy what it means to be human, not because we fight to destroy, but because we fight to save." The crew sat together as the stars drifted outside the window, each one a reminder of how far they had come, and how far they still had to go. The vigilant dawn continued its journey through the void, carrying with it the memory of a frozen world, a brave leader, and a people who refused to surrender. Somewhere deep in space, the faint echo of Taven's last message still traveled among the stars. We survived because we believed in each other, and that is something no world can take from us. And so the Deathworlders flew onward, not as conquerors but as saviors. The galaxy would remember that name, and one day it would understand. The vigilant dawn drifted into the heart of Council space, its massive engines glowing softly in the dark. Outside the ship, stars stretched into lines as hyperspace faded into the familiar light of the galaxy's core. Every human aboard felt the weight of what they had done, not just a rescue, but a statement. Captain Mara Ortiz stood on the bridge, staring at the massive spires of the Council's central station. Ships of all shapes and sizes filled the docking bays, their engines humming in unison. The Galactic Council had summoned her, and everyone aboard knew the meeting would not be easy. Lieutenant Raynor stepped beside her. "Captain, do you really think they'll listen?" Mara's eyes were steady. "They have to. We have proof. And more than that, we have the truth." Below deck, the rescued colonists were quiet. Some had never seen space this close. Children pressed their faces against the glass, watching massive alien ships drift like giants. Adults murmured among themselves, unsure what awaited them in the council chambers. But all of them trusted Mara. She had promised safety, and she intended to keep it. The council chamber was massive, taller than any building on Keros IV had ever been. Light streamed from overhead panels, casting geometric patterns across the floor. Representatives from dozens of alien species gathered in a semicircle, their faces curious, skeptical, and in some cases, hostile. At the center stood the Varn Overseer, Trell, his crystalline form glowing faintly. "Captain Ortiz," he said calmly, "you have disobeyed the Council. You have interfered with a sanctioned observation program. You will answer for your actions." Mara stepped forward. She did not bow, did not falter. "I answer only to the truth." Trell's many eyes blinked. "The Council entrusted you with their laws. You acted against them. I acted for life," Mara said. Her voice carried through the chamber like steel. 2 centuries ago, humans were sent to Keros IV to establish a colony. For generations, they survived under ice, storms, and death. And for generations, the Council ignored them. When the Varn arrived, they claimed some should live while others should be used for experiments. That is not law. That is cruelty. Murmurs echoed across the chamber. Some representatives whispered to each other, while others stared at the humans with growing interest. Raynor stepped forward, placing the data chip from Keros IV on the central table. "All of their research logs, Captain's Council," he said. "Every experiment, every recording, every note, it's all here. They treated humans as objects, not life." The Varn Overseer's voice remained calm. "Your accusations are exaggerated. We followed protocol. They were part of a controlled study." Mara shook her head. "No study is worth a life. Half the colony could have died. Children, elders, all for your curiosity. Humanity has a word for that, wrong. And we stopped it. We saved every last one." A tall alien from the Andari species spoke next, its skin shimmering gold. "Captain Ortiz, are you saying your species defied Council orders to protect others? Why should we support your actions?" Mara looked around the chamber, her gaze steady. "Because what defines a species is not obedience to rules, but the courage to do what is right. You call us Deathworlders. You say we are reckless. Maybe we are, but we are also compassionate, brave, and relentless. Those are the qualities that make life worth defending." The room fell silent. Even the Varn seemed momentarily unsure. Elder Taven, standing beside the human colonists, added his voice, weak but firm. "We lived for generations under ice. We survived storms, hunger, and fear. And now, because these humans refuse to leave us behind, we live to tell our story. That is why they saved us. Not for law, not for science, but because they are human and they know that every life matters. Murmurs of astonishment rippled through the chamber. Some aliens had never heard a human speak in such unwavering tone. Others seemed to reconsider what they had believed about humanity. Overseer Trell's voice cut the silence. "Captain Ortiz, the council will deliberate. You will be held accountable for your disobedience," Mara smiled faintly. "I am ready to answer for truth, Overseer. But remember this, no law is higher than life itself, and no council can justify cruelty." The deliberation lasted for hours. Mara and her crew stood silently as the council debated. Some argued that the humans were reckless. Others began to question the Varn's methods. Over time, the whispers of admiration for the humans grew louder. Finally, the head of the council, a massive being known as Speaker Errol, spoke. Its voice echoed like thunder. "Captain Mara Ortiz and the crew of the Vigilant Dawn have acted against council orders. Yet the evidence is clear. The Varn treated humans as objects, not life. And yet these humans and these Deathworlders saved every colonist they could. They risked themselves and defied protocol for the sake of life itself." The chamber grew quiet. Speaker Errol continued. "The council recognizes that humanity's actions were not lawless, but guided by a principle greater than law. The principle that life in any form is sacred." Mara's crew exhaled softly. Even the colonists looked hopeful for the first time. "The council rules," the speaker said, "that Captain Mara Ortiz and her crew are not in violation. The rescued colonists will be granted full protection and asylum. The actions of the Varn will be investigated, and those found responsible will face judgment." Mara let her shoulders relax for the first time in days. She looked at her crew, who smiled faintly but exhaustedly. She then turned to the colonists, who stared at her with wide eyes. "You are safe," she said softly. "You have a home now, and we will make sure that no one ever decides your fate without your voice again." Elder Tavin stepped forward, tears running down his face. "You gave us more than life," he said. "You gave us hope. And hope is stronger than any law, stronger than any storm, stronger than any council." Mara nodded. "Then go and live. Make your future bright. And remember, humanity never abandons its own." The colonists hugged her and the crew. Children laughed softly, and for the first time some dared to step into the light of a station orbiting a distant star. Later, in the observation deck of the Vigilant Dawn, Mara spoke quietly to Raynor. "They call us Deathworlders, dangerous, reckless, unpredictable." Raynor smiled. "Yet they still respect us." Mara looked at the stars. "They will fear us because we fight for life, not destruction. But they will remember that courage is stronger than fear." The ship's engines hummed quietly as they prepared to leave council space. Behind them, Kairos 4's story would be told across the galaxy. A story of survival, bravery, and the humanity that refused to bow to cruelty. The colonists had seen the universe beyond their frozen home. They had witnessed what humans were capable of, not just the strength of their bodies, but the strength of their hearts. And they had learned something vital. Even in a galaxy of aliens and rules, compassion and courage could triumph. In the weeks that followed, the council held hearings into the Varn's actions. Several were found guilty of misconduct and ordered to make reparations. The humans were praised quietly in private chambers, their defiance recognized not as rebellion, but as the moral standard for all species. Mara and her crew returned to deep space, carrying with them not only the colonists but also the knowledge that humanity's reputation as Deathworlders had grown stronger. Stories of their courage spread, whispered between star systems and council chambers alike. On the Vigilant Dawn, Elder Tavin stood by the viewing window, looking at the stars stretching infinitely ahead. "We owe you more than words can say," he said softly. Mara shook her head. "We only did what humans do best. We fight for life no matter the odds." Tavin smiled faintly. "Then may the stars always remember what Deathworlders are capable of." Mara looked forward at the endless sea of light. "They will," she whispered. "And if anyone ever doubts humanity again, they will learn the same lesson we taught Kairos IV. Never decide who lives, when humans are on the line." The Vigilant Dawn sailed on, carrying the rescued colonists toward a new home among the stars. Humanity had once again proven that courage, compassion, and determination could overcome even the coldest laws of the galaxy. And somewhere in the vastness of space, a whisper spread from star system to star system. Deathworlders do not abandon their own, and no one decides who survives but them. And the galaxy remembered. The story ends with humanity standing tall, the colonists safe, and the Varn forced to reckon with a species that refused to bow to cruelty. A true HFY moment of courage and survival.